I'm Elliot Radicke, and for my classroom behavioral expectation plan, I will be covering the following: classroom environment and culture, my teaching style, the layout of the classroom, rules and expectations for the students in the classroom, communication and follow through of the rules, and lastly, classroom procedures. My classroom management style will be a positive, safe, consistent, and taught and modeled by me. The learning environment will be set up so that the students can succeed. My classroom management style will be to encourage a positive learning environment by setting clear rules, consistent discipline, and taught and modeled by myself. I would inspire the students to learn and use responsible behavior. This would be done through positive actions, positive reinforcement, to be personal and make sure that each student feels safe. I will be consistent in what I say and what I do and how I teach. I believe that teachers should model their expected behavior. So I will teach the students what I expect and I'll model it myself and make sure it is clear and consistent. My teaching style is influenced by Fred Jones, Marvin Marshall, and William Glasser. I believe that the students should be engaged, that their learning environment should be an engaging learning environment. And in order to do that, I need to be a teacher that has quality teaching, a teacher that teaches responsible behavior. I also will be a teacher that is clear and consistent in how I manage the classroom, in how I teach, and in my positivity in the students. I would also have immediate follow-up for students who have done a great job and for students who need extra work. I would have immediate follow-up for great behaviors and misbehaviors. I would also be a teacher that is proactive and not reactive. I believe proactive teachers gain a lot of respect from the students when they're not reacting to misbehaviors. I would make sure that I knew exactly what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. I would make sure that I was clear and consistent in each time I did that. I do believe that Fred Jones, Marvin Marshall, and William Glasser have influenced my teaching style to do these things. The layout of my class is pretty simple. I have all the desks facing to the front of the room. I have the teacher's desk in the back corner. I have the students' cubbies or their extra resources in the back. I have classroom resources or the bookshelf up in front, and I have a work and resource table back by the teacher's desk. I have a podium there for any teaching lessons. The way the desks are set up, it is set up for if I need to move students around, I can push the desks over to one side or shift them around a little bit. They're also set up if there's going to be a para in the room with a student. That way there is some room or freedom. And then you can also see that there is a little bit of gap in some spaces. And that's just in case if a student has a really hard time sitting by other students. I have rules in the front and the back. This is to remind them of the rules when they're facing the front of what the classroom rules and expectations are. The rules are in the back too, so if I'm in my desk doing some preparing or prep work, I can easily remind the students of the rules and I can point to them there. The resource table is by my desk. I have that set up for both positive students and students with consequences. So students that might have a consequence or they might need a break just to chill out for a little bit or take a breath and get reminded of the 3 R's, they can sit at that resource table. Or maybe it's the positive students where they showed great behavior and great respect and responsibility. They might be able to sit back there and work quietly when it comes to homework time. The walls, I would have posters of kind of some remarkable leaders and citizens. I would have maybe posters of Gandhi or Martin Luther King, former President Obama, former Vice President Joe Biden. I would have those things around in the classroom just to display of leaders and people who had great respect, great responsibility, and great reliability. And they might fluctuate throughout Each lesson, I might change around the posters depending on what we'd be learning. There would also be a calendar up in the classroom as well, and along with a class schedule, and that would be typically on the whiteboard or the smartboard of the class. My class rules and expectations would only have 5 rules. I did this based off Cantor's advice of classroom control. The first rule is that the teacher has the right to teach. The number one job for a teacher is to ensure that every student's safety. The second one is to teach. And that's why that first one is so important, is that the teacher is the teacher and the students are the students. And that goes into the second rule. Every student has the right to learn. Our classroom would be a positive learning environment set up for each student to learn. And if the students get off task, this is an easy rule to remind each student to respect their fellow classmates' right to learn. So if they get off task or disruptive, it's a quick point out, hey, make sure we're respecting their right to learn. The next 3 rules are my 3 R's: respect, responsible, and reliable. Respect is so important to learn and to show one another. Our classroom will be full of respect of another's belongings, feelings, and privacy. Responsibility is a big one for me. I want each student to be empowered to become more responsible in their actions, their thoughts, and their education. The last one is reliable. This one to me is like honesty. As a class, we will be together for the whole year, and I want each student to feel included, cared for, and that we can count on one another. In the classroom, I expect their words to match their actions, and that goes for me as well. In order for me to teach and communicate the rules, I would send an email and a letter to the parents or guardians of each student. I would also send email to the school administrative staff. That way they know my rules and expectations. That letter to the parents or guardians would actually be the same letter going to the school administrative staff too. That way they understand what I'm expecting of the students and of the parents too. I will teach the students each one of the rules that I have, and I would model it for them. I would also teach all the class rules for the first week throughout the whole week. Every day we would go over the rules. And then the following week, I would maybe highlight 1 or 2 of the rules throughout the week. And then by the 3rd week of school, my classroom should be set up following the rules and knowing the expectations of the rules. If a rule was broken, I would remind the students, hey, let's get back to our classroom rules and respect one another, or be reliable, or be responsible, or respect the student's right to learn, or respect my right to teach. The student's role in the rules, we talk about the rules. I would ask the students, what does it look like to follow these rules? What are some fair consequences of the rules? That way they know what is expected, they know the rules, they know the expectations, and they even know the consequences of breaking those rules. The classroom rules, as a teacher, I would make sure I am clear and consistent in how I do them. For students who are following the rules and are great examples of what the students' expectation is, I would make them student leaders. Maybe they help pass out homework, or they encourage other students, or they're able to help other students out in their homework. There'd be like little promotions, whether it's the early lineup, or they get to go out to recess early, or whatever it may be, they would be promoted. Like I said, the early lineup. They would also kind of be a teacher's helper. Maybe it's organizing things in the cubbies or organizing the bookshelf. These would be goals that I would want each student to have when they follow the rules. I believe when you follow the rules, they should be rewarded for that. Not necessarily every time, but when they show excellent behavior. If a student violates or breaks the rules, what I would do is I would kind of do a 5-step method. The first one would be a warning. Remind the student of the rule and how they broke the rule. The second one would be a strike 1. They would lose 5 minutes of recess. Strike 2, you would lose 10 minutes of recess, and also be reminded of the rule just like in strike 1 and in the warning. Strike 3 would be an email to the parent or guardian on the behaviors that they've had. I would also, depending on the situation, I might have the student call home and explain why they're calling. They would have to explain how they broke the rules and their behaviors for that. After the warning, strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3, they would be out. They wouldn't be allowed in the class. They would be sent down to the dean and principal with documentation of how they behaved and how they broke the rules. Now, each behavior is a little bit different. Whether it's a serious aggression, then they might go straight to strike 3 or straight to out. Each, depending on the behavior and the magnitude of the breaking of the rules, then it would be a little bit different. Again, this would be a proactive thing that I would do as a teacher and not a reactive thing. Each time the student broke the rule, they would be reminded of how they broke the rule and regain that sense of respect, responsibility, and reliability in the classroom. For students who need to be on a behavioral plan, I would have an on-track system. What I would do is I would have the student check in with me at the start of the day. This would be a personal interaction asking them how they are doing today, remind them of their expected behavior, and let them know that today is a new day and they can make the right choice and be the best version of themselves. Throughout the day, they would be doing a tracking sheet of the behavior. It would go through each subject and it would be basically a checklist. Did they follow the 5 rules? And maybe it's based off a specific behavior. Did they display responsibility? Did they display respect? Did they display how they can be reliable? This tracking sheet would be gathered up at the end of the week and be sent home with the student to the parent or the guardian. They would also do a checkout system. And this would be another personal thing of, hey, you did a great day. You had a great day today. I'm really proud of you. You showed respect or you showed responsibility. And maybe they need a little bit of encouragement saying, you know what, you were on strike 3 today. I'm really disappointed on that, but I know tomorrow is a new day. And highlight some of their positive behaviors that they did and encourage them to say, hey, tomorrow's a new day. We're going to get back on track. So the beginning and end of my classroom procedures would start out with the start of the day, and they would have a do now. This might be a listed 2, 3, or even 5 tasks that they need to do. An example of these would be, first thing is put your things away and get yourself ready for the day. Have a pencil out or have your learning materials out. It could be fill in today's planner. Fill out what the homework assignments are going to be for today and the subjects that we'll be covering. And then the third thing would be a task. Work on the subject. It could be sit quietly at your desk and start reading. Or maybe it's a math fact sheet that they'd start filling it out. Or maybe they start reading and highlighting something that is going to be used in the subject to begin. So the start of the day is not going to be a goof around, hey, catch up with your friends time. There's going to be specific learning things for them to do right away. The end of the day is before you go. They're going to do a little day reflection. Do I have my homework? Is my planner filled out? And they might, depending on the student, do a self-evaluation of the 3 R's. Was I respectful today? Was I responsible today? Was I reliable today? Some students would be on that self-evaluation if they're on that behavioral plan, and some students might be on it just to show to their parents that I am doing a great job and I am improving really well. So the end of the day, we'll have some purpose and we'll have some tasks until the bell rings. Continue on with the classroom procedures. At the start of the lesson, I would review the previous lesson. I might even use a student to review and talk about what they learned the previous day. Then I would introduce the new concept of what they're going to be learning and the objectives that they're going to be doing. And then I would teach that new concept or the new lesson for them. At the end of the lesson, we would kind of review, did we meet those objectives of the new concept? We would review, and I could even use a student that displayed great behavior to kind of review and recap what was taught and what was learned. And then lastly, if they had work time, and that would be if it's available. and they would have a specific task they would be working on, whether it was part of their homework assignment or whether it was continued reading of that. Each lesson would be packed full and would also incorporate some of the rules that we have in the classroom, especially the 3 R's. Were they respectful, reliable, and responsibility? The resources I used for my classroom behavioral management plan is the course book, Building Classroom Discipline, written by C.M. Charles, and I used a lot of the educators and philosophers in there to incorporate my plan.